Almost not. A Sunday. I hear you serving. Why? You told me you were. I saw the one every game when you told me. You told me the Bengals played that one. So just come in at 5. Probably not. Okay. I don't know, but I got their defense in fantasy just for this week. Patriots. You can do it. I'm gonna text you, Sam. All right, man. It's Kobe%. You're gonna sit up front? I'll sit with you if you come. Mark's gonna be there too. He needs Jesus. He needs a room. It's hard. You're gonna be all right. I used to. And then you get all this stuff. Right there. I used to do both at mine, but your wife is funny. You told me you would. Did I? You did. I see a lot of things. I know. I need to start recording. Look right at this.
Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for joining me here on Wave Now. I'm Myra Ansari. We are going live to a media briefing, a press briefing that LMPD is having with Interim Police Chief Paul Humphrey. This is something new. We, of course, always bring you information from press conferences, but Chief Humphrey is holding his first weekly media briefing. So this means that he'll be talking about some issues that he wants to talk about, and then he opens up the media briefing so people from the area, TV stations and area newspapers and whatnot, they can ask questions of the chief on various topics. So he's about ready to get started. We're going to jump in and listen.
Good afternoon. Let me know when you are all ready. Front row. David, you good? Okay. All right. Good morning. Paul Humphrey, Chief of Police. Starting a new series of press conferences. One of the things that I've talked about before with you all is a dedication to transparency. This is going to be another thing that we do to make sure that you, the public, you, the media, have opportunities to understand what's going on within LMPD, within the community, how we operate, and give an opportunity to ask questions and get some insights into how we're operating. The plan is for this to be on a bi-weekly schedule. So every other week looks like we're going to be first and third Wednesdays. And during those press conferences, you should expect me or a member of the executive staff, as well as other representatives from the department, who are probably going to be more subject matter experts in some of the specifics that we might talk about that particular week. Today, it's going to be a little bit different because I'm going to kind of explain to you what our goal is with all of this as we go through it, but I'm going to give it to you just the same as if we were doing this on a normal basis. So I also want to put it out there that if there is some kind of extenuating circumstance, we will cancel it. But barring that, you will get this bi-weekly update every week. Again, I want to make sure that we have a regular, sustained opportunity for people to engage, understand, and get acclimated to what we're doing internally. So what we'll begin with is a crime overview. So we will give you both some of the significant numbers from the year to date, as well as crime trends. During this time period, we might talk about some specific cases that we have information about that we can update you on, or we might ask you for help in identifying suspects or locating suspects, or provide updates as to the strategies that we're using to combat crime. Part of what we are working on right now is a real community safety focused crime strategy, an all-purpose strategy. In that, we're also partnering with the mayor's office, who is creating another part of that crime strategy. And so you'll see those coming out shortly. I am a firm believer that you have to have a plan for everything. We often deviate from plans, but that's where you start. And so we want a crime strategy so that every officer on the department understands what their role is in combating crime. So you can see our homicide, non-fatal, and robbery numbers year to date. And you can see our homicide numbers are up about 8%, while our shootings are down about 7%. Usually those numbers will correlate a little bit more closely. So it's a little odd this year that we've had a drop in overall shootings. So that's a very, very good sign. However, an increase in the lethality of those shootings. So that's something that we need to look into and understand a little bit better. One of the things very proud about is our reduction in robberies. Obviously, that's a very violent crime that victimizes people. But we've had a 33% drop in business robberies over the past year to date. One of the things that was changes that was made a few years ago is that carjackings, when we saw the spike in carjackings, those got moved over from being investigated by each individual division detective's office to being centrally investigated by the robbery unit. That has helped us greatly in identifying and prosecuting carjackers. And so that has been a great move that we've had in the past couple of years. So some of the work that has been done by these units. So you'll see that we have made an arrest in 34 of our homicides this year. Also understand that homicide cases don't just always lead to an arrest like that. They are constantly worked. So it is not uncommon for us to make arrests weeks, months, or even sometimes years after the actual homicide case. So when you look at the homicide arrests and the clearance numbers, they are often far delayed compared to the time of the crime. We always want to see an arrest as quick as possible. We had a homicide the other night on Logan Street. And we were able to make that arrest within 5 or 6 hours due to really good community cooperation, good cameras that were on some of the businesses in the area, and good solid police work that had police officers in the area very quickly and had that scene locked down. Homicide detectives were able to call out the SWAT team, and they were able to take that suspect into custody without any incident. So sometimes you'll see those quick arrests, and that's great to get that person off the street. But just because we don't have an arrest that quickly, don't think that doesn't mean that those homicide detectives are not working that case diligently. They are putting in work every day, and many times we're going out after the fact with our fugitive unit, our violent crime squads from CID, or average police officers are helping homicide locate and get information about these suspects. The non-fatal shooting squad. So you all know a few years ago that a change was made as well to transition. We've gone back and forth over the years. So in the course of my career, non-fatal shootings have been investigated either by division detectives. They were also centrally located in the homicide unit. And then they're now being investigated by a squad that is dedicated just to non-fatal shootings. That gives us the opportunity to dedicate specific resources to each one of those shootings and work them with the diligence and the care that they deserve. Understand that a non-fatal shooting is, it may be just mere inches from being a homicide. We also know that there's an increased likelihood that those victims or the participants in those non-fatal shootings are your later victims or suspects of homicide. So we want to make sure that we get to those people and we address those issues with just as much vigor as we do with homicides. One of the other things we're pretty proud of is our increase in federal indictments. These are federal indictments that are just coming out of our criminal interdiction division. That means that we are partnering with our federal partners, FBI, ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshals, to find the worst of the worst, the habitual repeat offenders who are plaguing our community. If you don't know how the federal system works compared to the state system, the federal system, they will not pick up a case. The feds are not going to pick up a case unless they almost 100% feel comfortable that they're going to get a conviction one way or the other. And with that conviction comes an 85% service mandate that they are going to serve that time. That is very important because what that is showing is it's showing the confidence that the feds have in our investigators and the work that they're doing. But it also shows that people are being held accountable at the highest level for those crimes. And these are often the things that you don't see. Those partnerships behind the scenes and the good work that's going on that isn't always as visible as some of that frontline police work. But these are usually very, very dangerous people that we've been able to take off the street and get out of our community. So one of the things that has gotten a lot of attention in the past week is street racing. We've spoken to you about it before. This is a problem that popped up several years ago. It's a problem that is plaguing many, many major cities around the country. And frankly, with the cooperation of the Metro Council and the expansion of the drag racing ordinance to allow us to seize cars and take enforcement action, not just on the active participants, but anyone who blocks a road, participates passively. It has allowed us to take much greater, much more effective action. The other aspect of that is that we're able to seize people's vehicles. If you have a car that you've put $120,000, $150,000 into, a reckless driving ticket is like water off a duck's back to you. You really don't care about that, and that's what we found. But what you do care about is that your car that you care about so much is going to go sit on the impound lot for the next 6 months, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we've seized now, I think, 65 cars in the past couple of years on that ordinance. The 2 cars that you see in that picture are 2 cars that were seized by our detail on Sunday night. The detail was very coordinated. And the reason why you did not hear about what you heard about on Saturday, you didn't hear that on Sunday, is because as soon as we start doing this and we start picking people's cars off, they quit. The message goes out very, very quickly that this isn't the place to play. You had seen that previously where we had this high frequency of street racers, and that went away for a while, or the frequency went down drastically. And that was because of the high level of enforcement and focus that we put on it. And trust me, we're going to continue to do that. So I am very proud of those officers on Saturday night. They were placed in an unreasonably dangerous situation. The community was placed in an unreasonably dangerous situation, but fortunately, those officers exerted patience, and no one got hurt. There was a high potential on Saturday night for someone to be seriously injured, and fortunately, that's not what happened. We are not going to tolerate that type of behavior. You are not going to put officers from LMPD in danger. You're not going to put the public in danger, plain and simple. The picture on the right is a suspect from Saturday night at 26th and Market that we need help from the community in identifying. We had several people that jumped on one of our LMPD police cars doing thousands of dollars worth of damage. Taxpayer money is going to take care of that to fix that damage that was caused by this individual as well as others who need to be held accountable for their actions. So if you or anyone that you know has information on who this subject is, the 1st Division Detective's Office is working that, and you can call 574 LMPD to give us information on who that subject or any of the other subjects who were participating in these car racing events might have been. So one of the other things that we want to highlight is we talk about community engagement, and we talk about our ability to get out and meet with the community. We want to be able to highlight every other week some of the events that we have coming up, whether those events sponsored by LMPD or those are events that are going on in the community so the community knows. We have a program right now called Meet Your Beat Officer. This is a chance for the community in each of these divisions to come out and meet with the individual officers and detectives who are assigned to their actual beat. So as you know, our divisions, 1st through 8th, are broken up into smaller areas of operation for officers called beats. And officers are assigned to those individual beats in those individual neighborhoods. And so this is an opportunity in the 4th Division on September 10th from 6 to 8 at Sojourn Church down on Taylor Boulevard, right there at Carlisle. And then out of the paddock shops on the 17th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Summit Plaza Drive an opportunity for the community in those divisions to come out, meet with the command staff of that division, meet with the officers that ride their particular beats, and start to build those relationships that are so crucial to community safety. Our LMPD community engagement unit is extremely active. So they've already hosted about 90 events this year, between Meet Your Beat Officer events, Stop the Violence events, and others that they do. One of the things that they do that I think is really special and very effective, and I think the community appreciates, but it's not widely known, is that after we have significant events like homicides, hostage situations, those things that shake up a neighborhood that would normally cause some disruption, they go back and they go door to door in those neighborhoods, and they engage those people that were victimized, because the people who are victimized are not just the ones that were injured, but it's the entire community surrounding that event. And so they go door to door and make contact with people in those areas where violence happens, to make sure that they can help get resources, get information, and take care of the people who are the ones that we really should focus our attention to. And those are the good citizens who are just trying to live their life. One of the other programs that we have, gang violence has come up as a topic several times. The GREAT program. The GREAT program is the gang resistance training that is done through JCPS with collaboration with LMPD officers to help train and teach young kids in JCPS how to resist that type of behavior and how to express positive behaviors and be a good part of the community. And so that's a program that's been going on and has been very successful, and will continue obviously with the new school year starting this year. So that's something we are very proud of. One of the things that we also want to do is feature individual, a unit, so that you can understand some of the things that are being done on the department. The other thing is we want to take opportunities to educate you, the public, on how we operate so that you better understand the system. So in different weeks, we might walk you through how a pattern of a homicide investigation goes. What does the complaint process look like on an officer? What happens after a person is arrested? So all of those things that we want you to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And one of the first ones that I want to feature is our victim services unit, an absolutely amazing victim services unit, nationally recognized victim services unit. And what they are is they're that hidden part of taking care of the community. You see us making arrests, you hear about the victims and survivors, but this is the unit that takes care of those victims and survivors. They go back after the fact. They're there on scene oftentimes, and they are dealing with the victims, survivors, and witnesses of violent crime to help walk them through the criminal justice process. This is helping them become whole again. We can never bring back their loved one. We can never undo their victimization, but this is that level of comfort and that level of compassion that we show to make sure that victims are taken care of. And with me today, I have Megan Ware, who is one of the supervisors within our victim services unit. And she has one of the other members of the victim services unit with her. His name is Leo.
Thank you, Chief. Aloha, good morning. My name is Megan Ware. I'm one of the supervisors with the Victim Services Unit at LMPD. The LMPD Victim Services Unit was created in 2016 to ensure the fair, compassionate, and sensitive response to victims and witnesses of crime. Our mission is to provide support and advocacy services to victims by meeting their emotional, physical, mental health, and financial needs of both the victim and the family after an incident occurs. Since 2016, our unit has grown to 19 positions, including our hardest working employee, Leo, our therapy dog. The VSU receives cases from all major crimes investigative units, which includes homicide, robbery, and the special victims unit. We also work with the non-fatal shooting unit, the traffic unit, and division detectives as they investigate violent crime throughout LMPD's entire jurisdiction. We operate as a 24/7 crisis response unit, which enables officers and detectives to call on VSU to engage in crisis intervention and to try to meet the needs immediately after an incident occurs of both the victim and their family and the community at large. It is important to acknowledge that every case is unique because every person is different and may require different support services through that time. In 2023, the VSU served nearly 6,500 clients, totaling almost 35,000 services rendered. Those services include close to 100 callouts, 100 client transports, and attending court with victims and their families almost 300 times. Other services rendered include safety planning, assisting with protective order filing, providing emergency shelter and relocation, and walking alongside victims and families through the entire investigative process. The VSU is fortunate to have internal resources through which we can support clients, but we also know that this job can't be done by LMPD alone. Our unit works diligently to build and maintain community relationships so that we can provide resources and resource referrals to community agencies who are doing incredibly hard work to meet the needs of the most vulnerable in our city. We know that it is almost always under incredibly traumatic and tragic circumstances in which our unit encounters citizens of Louisville, but it is the Victim Services Unit's honor and privilege to serve this community towards hope and healing. If you feel like you need to get in touch with the Victim Services Unit, you can call our office at 502-574-8788. Thank you for having me, and I'd like to turn it back over to Chief at this time.
Thank you, Megan. So that's a very, very important part that I think people miss out on. We talk a lot about officer and member wellness, but this is about community wellness. This is that missing piece. It's not just a technical piece. It is about making citizens whole again as closely as we can get them. So I appreciate the work that they do. It's absolutely amazing. They have been nationally recognized several times, and we're very proud of the work that they do. One of the things I want to also touch on really quickly is that we don't have a date set yet, but we will be having the release of the officer-involved shooting video sometime next week. We're still in the process of making sure that all of the critical interviews are conducted before that release goes out so that you understand a little bit better. Officers generally do not watch their videos prior to. They watch them afterwards. So we want to make sure that those videos are not posted publicly before we get statements from critical witnesses so that we can get the best account as we can. So that's part of the reason why there is a delay and we don't release these right away. We also want to be able to give you as much context as possible. So that gives us an opportunity to make sure that we get information gathered that is subject to public release. And then lastly, recruiting. Our recruiting, you saw that we had a recent class, and David, you asked me about this the other day. We had a recent class graduate of 9 recruits. Very proud of those recruits and excited to get them out on the street. 9 is not enough. We have seen an increase in our applicants, but what that says is also we are not lowering our standards. So just because we've received an increase in applicants doesn't mean we're going to take people who aren't qualified to do this job. And so I would rather have 9 outstanding recruits hitting the street than double or triple that if they're questionable character. So we are very proud of them. We're always hiring. So you can go to lmpdjobs.com and see the information. There's not too many places where you can have a high school education and walk through the door making almost $70,000 a year and serve your community at the same time. So I will end by giving you the opportunity to ask questions.
Picking up right when you were talking about recruiting, you say you are getting an increase in applicants, but how are these applicants not measuring up that they end up not becoming police officers?
Well, so the question was, how are the applicants not measuring up? So if we've gotten an increase, why aren't we getting an increase in actual officers? There's a lot of reasons for that, right? So part of it might be the job market. And you have people putting in for this job who just aren't qualified for it. It is a rigorous process to become a police officer. The background check is thorough. The drug testing is thorough. The physical fitness test is thorough. And so the people who make it through the door have been heavily vetted. And so we are not going to lower our standards just because we're struggling to fill slots. But that being said, we also need to evaluate where the gaps are in that process, right? So are we recruiting in the right places? Are we targeting the right people? I tell you, and I'll tell you right now, Josh Hurd, you better be on the lookout because I'm coming to get your people. The athletic departments at the local colleges need to be on our recruiting trail. I mean, think about it. You've got people who understand how to work as a team. They get hard work. We know that they can be dedicated to a process. They take coaching and learning. What more do you need out of people? And they're physically fit and college educated. I would love to get in every single athletic department of all of the colleges, Simmons, Bellarmine, Spalding. We've got a job set up for those guys when they walk out of the door.
Are these applicants not making it into the academy, or are they not making it through the academy?
We have both. There's always an attrition rate. So the question was, are they not getting into the academy or not making it through the academy? We have both. Most of those applicants, and this has always been the case, that the majority of applicants, we might have 1,000 applicants for 48 spots and still only hire 20 of them. I think if you look back when myself and Assistant Chief Bates and some of us older guys were applying for the department, you were talking about 5,000-6,000 applicants for 40 or 50 positions. So that process is rigorous. And then you have the academy process where people either can't pass the tests or sometimes they realize that this job isn't for them. And that's okay. I would much rather someone in the academy realize that this job isn't for them because it's not for everyone. And voluntarily drop out of the process. So you get attrition at both levels, both in the application process as well as in the academy.
What about lateral transfers? Is LMPD a destination for the other officers out there, or is that still difficult to get those people?
So lateral transfers, is it difficult for us to get them here? And so I would say that we're actually in a better position now than we have been in a long time. So we've gotten a ton of rehires. So these are people who have retired and come back because they see the advantages of being here. They like working here. We've had several people who have left, gone to another agency, and then come back for various reasons. When you look in this region, there's not a department that has more opportunity than LMPD. And that is no knock on great officers that are some of these smaller agencies. But you can't do the things that we do within LMPD at a smaller agency. And so we've had very good luck of bringing in both retirees and people coming back. Laterals are a little bit different, right? Because everybody's been trained to a different standard. And so that process is a little bit more, it's both more streamlined and complicated for us to bring in laterals when you're talking about in-state versus out-of-state. But I will tell you, Officer Brinkley, that was in the officer-involved shooting in the 3rd Division, a lateral from Lebanon Junction, outstanding officer. The experience that he had there while he's fairly new here, the experience that he had in Lebanon Junction to get that time on the street and understand this job before he came over us has paid dividends. And we have several others that have come from different agencies. So that's one of the things that there's give and take to taking laterals.
Do you think LMPD is paying enough to get officers to come here?
I do think LMPD is paying well now. That was not always the case. But I do think we are paying a competitive wage. And frankly, because of the number of opportunities and the amount of crime that's going on, there's always an opportunity to work more and earn some overtime. So I do think we're paying at a competitive wage to get people through the door.
Can you expand on why you felt it necessary to start these bi-weekly press conferences?
So why did I feel it was necessary to start these bi-weekly press conferences? I think access to information for the public and for you all, the media, is very important. I think sometimes what we do as a profession is we put out information without context. And so this is an opportunity for us to put out information with context and engage. You all have questions that, when you submit questions through our PIO's office, those pour in. But this is an opportunity for us as the command staff and for subject matter experts to get before you and explain to you certain things with a little bit more context and a little bit more nuance so that the public understands how things work.
Is there any more context or nuance you want to provide to the street racing situation that's going on?
Yeah, context of the street racing is don't do it. We're going to take your car and jump on a police car again, and it's probably not going to work out well for you. This guy's going to end up in jail sooner or later. That's not going to be tolerated.
You said 65 cars over the course of 2 years?
Yes.
So what's that trend look like? Is that every other weekend you're seeing street takeovers? You know, like how often is this happening?
So how often does this happen? So this used to be a thing that how long you been here?
I've lived in Louisville for
You're from here, right? Okay. You've been here for a while. So, I mean, you saw everything and how it increased post 2020 with these street racers, these street takeovers. And I would say in the past year or so, there's been a huge dip in it. You get occasional things that pop up, but we hadn't seen this scale that happened this past weekend in a while. And if they want to do that, that's fine. We're going to be there for them this time. We've got them.
Do you feel like the ordinance had an icing effect on it after it went through?
Absolutely, the ordinance had an icing effect on it. When somebody gets their car taken for 6 months, that has an icing effect on it, and the word travels that we're not going to tolerate that.
Are car thefts up?
I don't have the numbers exactly on car thefts. I'll get it to you.
Can you give us an update on the command staff, your command staff, in terms of like replacing Stephen Healy?
Yeah, we're functioning pretty well right now. There's going to be a couple of announcements that are going to, I believe, we'll be talking about soon. So we'll be planning on promoting some of the command staff and moving things around in the coming weeks or so.
What's the status of a search for a new chief? Is there a search going on, or are you, in a sense, I think what the word is auditioning for the job right now?
I mean, I think I've been auditioning for the job for 18 years. No, there is no search going on for the chief right now.
On Friday, you told, or the LMPD told us that the suspect was shot by the LMPD officer in the Walmart. Was it still in the hospital? Is that still the case?
Has he been released yet? Okay, so the suspect's still in the hospital, yes.
My second question is, it feels like it's been a rash of gun violence, just in my county, 8 people shot in the last 10 days. Can you just speak to that and how it almost feels like Louisville goes through this realm of there's this short window of people being shot and killed or shot and survive, and then it stops again, starts back up again.
So the question was, can we explain how we have these ups and downs and these spikes and valleys in gun violence? That's nothing new, right? Gun violence has always kind of done this thing, and violence does too. There's seasonal factors. So weather gets warm, we know we're going to have issues, and so that's when we put out our crime plan. That's part of understanding normal trends, right? So we know that when the weather gets warm, we're going to have spikes in violence. We know when school gets out, we're going to have certain problems. We know that come holiday time, we're going to have issues with suicides and robberies. Like, we know these things are typical cyclic events. And so that needs to be built in our plan of how we manage and deploy our resources and what we're asking them to do to focus on things that are foreseeable. There's certain things that we can't control, but the things that we do know, we need to be prepared for, and that needs to be part of our plan.
You showed us a suspect from 26 and Market with the street racing. I think I understood you said that suspect actually leaped onto the hood of a police car.
Yes, sir.
Well, we saw that same behavior at New Cut Road.
Yes, sir.
Is this a thing now with these incidents?
It better not be. So if your question is this going to become normal behavior in these types of incidents, this is the first time that we've had anything like this, to my knowledge, since 2020. It's not going to become a normal thing. Somebody's going to get hurt, and they're going to go to jail. So you better not jump on a police car, because it's not going to work out well for you.
We paid a lot of attention to the New Cut Road incident because there was a lot of video available. What evidence have you collected, and can you tell us, are you getting closer to making arrests in that location?
So that's part of our process. As we go through our detectives and our real-time crime center, and they comb through every ounce of video, all of that social media, right? They do this for clicks. They do it for likes, right? Well, guess what? We can use all of that. So if you want to put that out, you want to try to try to get attention, we'll give you the attention we want, and I'll make sure that you get his mugshot when he gets locked up.
Have you come across any evidence that suggests that the participants in any of the incidents we saw over the weekend were from out of town?
Yes. This is not a uniquely Louisville thing. We are in communication with agencies from other cities, Cincinnati and Indianapolis and places in the region. And we do see some of these cars that show up here, show up at those places too. So these people travel to do this stuff. Some of them might be local to Louisville and go there. Some of them might be from there and come here. So it's a mix of both.
Some people who've seen this video have asked me, Chief, of the people jumping onto the police car, why the officer backed off, why the officer did not confront those people who were jumping on the car. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So why did the officer back off as opposed to confronting the people jumping on his car at that time? As much as everything in your senses say get out and deal with this problem, that's not a winnable situation right at that moment when you're a single officer by yourself. So that was a very mature decision, and probably against everything in that officer's being to back out of that situation. But sometimes you got to take a tactical retreat. And you have to put yourself in a position where you're not going to get hurt. And the other thing is that he could have affected arrest there. He could have gotten out, but the level of force that he probably would have had to use to do that wouldn't have been what we would have wanted, right? Because he would have been dealing with a crowd that was overwhelming. And a lot of times when you don't have the resources or you're at some kind of disadvantage, your level of force is going to have to go up, right? So sometimes we're better to take a pause, take a step back, get the resources there that we need, and then deal with it. By the time we do that, in this particular situation, what happened is they leave because they know that everyone's coming. And so that's why we end up picking off cars and towing them and identifying them later. It's because we're doing it a safer way.
The two cars that you've seen, two, right?
Yes, sir.
They local or from out of town?
I believe they were both local. I know one of them was local. I believe both were local. But we locked up several people out of one of them, wrote a ticket out of the other, and seized four guns. So.
Does anybody else have anything?
Back to the recruiting. Are you a former college athlete?
No, I practiced sports in high school. So
Do you have a lot of former college athletes on the department?
we do have many former college athletes on the department, and that's just one of those things where that's an idea that we have. We have to. The way recruiting used to work is you didn't have to recruit for this job. People wanted this job. People wanted service jobs. We had a great pension, right? The pension system that he and I are on is completely different from what it is now. I know exactly what I'm going to get when I retire, right? And I can plan for that. And this was a thing that honestly kept me in the job when I thought about going to another city. It was like, whoa, hold on. I'm going to be able to retire with this percentage of what I make, have that for the rest of my life, and know that in a career that can be both difficult emotionally, mentally, as well as physically, I have that cushion, right? I have that thing to protect me and my family on the backside. Well, certain people in certain jobs that I don't determine who they are, I just get to vote for them, made the decision that they were going to switch over to a non-defined benefit. So you can pick that up, your 401k, and go anywhere. You can do any job. We're dealing with a different job market as well. So while we don't have 3,000 or 4,000 people competing for 48 spots, and we're not just in a position where, as recruiters, we're really doing a selection process, not a recruitment process, because the people are coming to us, we have to treat ourselves more like college recruiters, right? And this is a little bit of a generational thing, right? Is that people want to be told that they're wanted, young people. And that's not the way that it was for us. It was, I don't think you're good enough for this job. You better prove it. But now we need to go out and we need to act like college recruiters and say, hey, look, have you thought about this? I think you might be good at this. Because there's a lot of people that would be really, really good at this job that have no clue that they would be good at this job. And so we need to treat them like we're a college recruiter saying, I've got a spot for you and I can see your future and I can walk you through that. And you're going to be outstanding here. But that's it, it's finding those people with those characteristics, that desire for service, that hard work ethic. We can teach you all the skills. You don't have to have a single skill walking through the door. I was a college kid that didn't have any policing skills. walking through the door. It was, I never expected to get on the SWAT team, but it was guys like him. I thought SWAT was reserved for like, former military guys and special forces guys and stuff. And it was guys like him that were like, hey, you work your butt off. You do a good job on the beat. You ought to try this. And it turned out I was okay at it. And so we need to take that approach to recruiting is we need to identify one-on-one. The biggest recruiter for any profession, but particularly for our profession, is the people that are here, right? And so we can't control the external environment, right? All of the noise that we've heard over the past 4 years plus about the profession and the department has absolutely crushed us. Absolutely crushed us. But what are we doing internally to make sure that those people that are here are proud to work here, that feel like they're supported by the command staff, that feel like when they've done something good, that they're going to be recognized for it, that when they've made a mistake, they're not going to be raked over the coals. They're going to be made whole, just like we want the public to be made whole, right? That might involve some discipline, but we're not going to throw people under the bus. We're going to protect our employees. We want them to be happy and healthy and really, really good at their job. And when people feel like their leadership is giving them the resources, the training, the equipment to be really good at their job, they get happy about what they're doing. And then they go recruit more people. And the other thing that you see is that they actually go out there and they do more proactive work. We've gotten too far away from proactive work in the last few years, I think. Part of that is numbers, that we don't have enough people to go out here and have the proactive interactions, whether those are enforcement interactions or otherwise. But the other part is fear. Plain and simple. There's not a single officer on this department that I think fears putting their life on the line to save somebody else. But we haven't made them feel comfortable in their jobs to go out and do that all the time. And that's the job of leadership, is to make them feel like it's worth it to go out there and risk that, right? And when those people are happy and they feel good, they're going to go to their friends and say, hey, come join this job. This is a good place to work. And so when I know I'm getting long-winded, but it's something I'm kind of passionate about. I will tell you when we started talking about police reform and this reform process, I think that's police reform is nothing new. So we've been reforming since the beginning. But in this latest iteration of it, one of the reasons why we front-loaded wellness is so that officers saw that we, the command, we, the city, the mayor's office, the council, the community, cared about them. And when people feel cared about, they will go out and drive to keep people safe. And so
there's a culture shift in the department, both on like the recruiting end and the wellness end, that wasn't there when you became a cop.
Do I feel like there's a cultural shift on the wellness and the recruiting end that wasn't there when I became a cop? This is just a new iteration, right? And so we're not going to get caught in this, I'm doing it because that's the way I've always done it. People fear change, but people also hate the way things are, right? And so we have to embrace how we change, and it's okay to mess up. Like, we're going to go on recruiting campaigns that are going to be a net loss, and we have to treat that like it's a lesson learned, right? We're going to deploy new resources that we're going to say, well, that cost $100,000 and we got nothing out of it. But what we can't do is sit on the status quo. And so I do think that is part of the cultural shift, quote unquote, that we're trying to have with this in this department, is that I want you to push for the next best thing. That's fine if you look at best practices at other places, whether it's enforcement strategies or engagement strategies or recruitment strategies. But what is the next best thing for us? Because the only way that you can do big things and have good ideas is to do a lot of things and have a lot of ideas. But you have to have the faith that your command staff is going to support you and give you that freedom, that if it doesn't go well, hey, pat on the back, let's examine this, let's see why it didn't go well, and let's get better.
We're going to go ahead and conclude this, guys.
Thank you. See.
All right, folks, thanks so much for staying with me on this stream. LMPD talking about a number of things. You probably heard Wave News reporter David Mattingly asking several questions during this media briefing. The chief addressing, saying various topics and saying he's going to be doing these as a bi-weekly thing, talking about transparency, talking about issues impacting the community, taking questions from the media. Wave News reporter David Mattingly is going to have much more coming up for us here later today on Wave News at 5 and 6. I'm Myra Ansari. Hope you have a great day.